I'm a founder of a small architecture office here in the city called Family. And one of our main projects is called Pluspool, which I guess Piers just sort of introduced. But I basically broke up this talk into two parts. One which just describes what Pluspool is, and the other side which describes how we're going about it. And I'll try to get through the what it is really quickly, because I think it's actually more interesting to talk about how we're going about it. So what it is basically a project with this simple goal, just no shitty water. This is the project. Pluspool is a fairly straightforward name for a pool shaped like a plus. But really what it's doing is it's thought of as a giant strainer that you drop into the river. So it's actually filtering water through the walls of the pool. And the goal is to get everybody a chance to actually really swim in river water, feel what it's like to swim in river water, but also look at the water a little differently. The reason the project kind of came about is fairly simple. The city is literally surrounded by water. Actually, there was a lot of swimming pools and bathhouses almost 100 years ago that used the rivers not only for recreation, but actually for kind of civic use. People literally took baths there. Obviously, at some point, the city decided this was a bad idea. And the reasoning is basically that the city is surrounded by hundreds of CSOs, which means combined sewage overflows, which literally means during big rains, raw sewage is just getting dumped into the river. You can see every one of those red dots is where raw sewage will go into the river anytime there's a big rain. So if you are one of the open water swimmers, you probably know this. If you're anywhere near a river, stay away after a rain for about 48 hours. But what we wanted to do was, rather than say, clean up the entire river at once, which is actually something the city is trying to do, but it's a 50-year plan that started, it's a 20-year plan that started 50 years ago. It's a still 20-year plan that's still going. We said, why don't we just pick one spot, kind of carve out a spot in the river and see if we can clean that. The design is really simple. It's thought of as 4 pools kind of stuck together in one. A lap pool, a kids pool, a sports pool, and a lounge pool. One of the things we learned as we talked to all these different swimmers, there's just literally every kind of swimmer. And we wanted to try to bring a place where everybody could kind of get together at once. It can open up into a 9,000 square foot just open pool. It's Olympic size, so from end to end it's 50 meters. We think one of the few Olympic pools in the city, and we wanted to provide something that could be, in a way, competitive, but also just literally a giant place to cool off. But the filtration aspect is, I think, by far the most interesting part of it in a lot of ways, in terms of it's really just thought of as layers. Each of the layers in the wall, imagine this is kind of a section through the wall of the pool, each one taking out smaller and smaller things, literally from wildlife all the way down to bacteria. And what we've been doing is actually testing this system out. This is something that's never been done before. And I'm, quite frankly, till about the last 4 years, I literally knew nothing about filtration, about water, except that Brita would clog a lot and it'd be expensive to replace. So we actually started testing ourselves, building test platforms. This was at Brooklyn Bridge Park. We somehow convinced Columbia University to train us how to learn about water quality and set up a mini lab down there. This was last summer at Hudson River Park, where we built what we called Float Lab. Each of these 3 things, there's only one shown at the moment, but is a mini version of the Pluspool filtration system. This is the first time we actually tested the system in real river conditions, and this is what resulted. So basically what this is showing, and I apologize if it's just kind of a clusterfuck of stuff, but what it is the red line, which jumps around a lot, is how dirty the river is. This is all bacteria. It's called enterococci, which is literally human shit. So there is literally human shit in the river. The red line jumps around. You can see the spikes are when it rains a lot. The blue line is what we were testing. You can see in combo, let's say up until here, we weren't really getting very good results because we were actually trying a lot of things out, understanding the Hudson a little bit. By combo 6, though, we actually hit a combo that worked. And you can see the blue line is actually way at the bottom. You almost can't really see it. You'll see on the right, there's a beach quality and a pool quality. It just meant basically that by the end of the test, we were cleaner than a pool has to be, literally just through a filtration. It was the first time everything we wanted to work on paper was working in real river conditions. And we basically just flatlined bacteria no matter what the river was doing. But at the end game is basically just an experience that you get to kind of get, which I think you wouldn't ever get in New York. And it's about feeling the water and actually having this kind of different way of understanding the city. The second part is why we're doing it and kind of how we're going about it. Like I said, we're a small office, and it's actually the project of 2 different design offices. Family, which is mine, Play Lab, Jeff and Archie, which is ostensibly a graphic design office, but honestly, they just sort of design everything. And both of our offices started at the worst time to start an office, which is basically right at the bottom of the recession. So basically what happened was, as any young designer is, we were way more ambitious than we had any right to be. We had absolutely no work. So we basically said, let's come up with a way to actually do the work we wanted to do. We had a reason, which was basically, if anybody who lives in New York, it gets stupid sweaty. It's hot in the summer. You look at the river, and at some point, you realize it's actually water. It's not just this border between Brooklyn and Manhattan. It's actually really water. So it'd be great to kind of swim and cool off. The other was, we had this really funny design that we actually wanted to try out. We had to unfortunately VE out Raphael because he wasn't really helping much. So what we did was we just made a little bit of material. We made a website, we made a small book, and we made a newspaper. And like I said, we didn't really know what to do. We just wanted to put this out there and see if anybody had an interest like ours. The back of the booklet actually, fortunately I don't have a photo of it, literally says, "Hi, we're looking for help from," and we had a list of about 20 different disciplines that we thought were real jobs. We had no idea. So coincidentally, the very first website that picked it up was PSFK. I don't know if that's why I'm here, but, what happened was our friend Brian Jones, we sent the website to him just to look at it, just if he liked it. And he's like, "This is great, let me post it." Immediately within a day, it turned into a ton of press. We luckily basically launched it in an incredibly hot day, and we also learned that if you talk about New York, New Yorkers like to talk about New York, it'll spread a lot. If you get anything on the Gawker network, it basically blows up no matter what it is. So it led to a lot of press, and this is actually one of my favorites. It's Jeff being interviewed for a Chinese news TV station. I have no idea what he's saying. That press basically allowed us to build a team from founders into an actual large engineering team, into supporters across the city, into a board. We are now officially a 501c3 as of, I believe, 2 weeks ago. Mark Kushner, who is actually speaking after me, is on our board. Karen Wong, and then Josh David, who was one of the co-founders, or is one of the co-founders of the Highline. So especially with the Highline, we're basically trying to follow what the Highline achieved in terms of two guys that wanted to save this thing and then actually made one of the greatest parks, I'd say, certainly in New York, if not the world. That support allowed us to run 2 Kickstarter campaigns, 2011 and 2013. I think it's still one of the largest, if not the largest, civic project run through Kickstarter in terms of a project where people are donating money or giving money to a project that won't be built simply from that Kickstarter campaign. I mean, our project is about a $20 million project. We've raised, through Kickstarter anyway, you can see we raised about $300,000, which obviously doesn't build a full pool. But it was actually amazing that I think it resonated with people just wanting to see something happen in their city that they enjoyed. So people gave anywhere from $5 to $5,000. And more importantly, it built a huge level of support. I think across all of our work, this is the only project that really touches, I think, on so many different disciplines. We have gotten 2 calls now from, it's actually very sad, but we've gotten 2 calls now from kids who are asking what time the pool is opening tomorrow because they want to visit. It's both heartwarming and like terrible because you can actually, one of them, I swear I heard the dad laughing in the background. I was like, "You are terrible. You are terrible, please donate." But so the last campaign was actually really interesting. We realized there was so much interest that we wanted a way to give, quote unquote, a piece of the pool to people. So we figured out that obviously the smallest part of the pool was just a pool tile. And so we made all these pool tiles. And so what happens when you donated was you would get your name or whatever message you wanted on a tile. We'd send you a real tile, and we're still doing this now. Essentially the entire deck of the pool we wanted to fill and show people that this actually came from normal people who wanted to make a pool, not say from the city or from a private developer. And that was really interesting. Here's a few examples of some of those tiles. This also led to a partnership with our friends at Google to develop a dashboard, which is basically a way to take all of that data and showcase it in a way that we thought was understandable to people. Because again, we weren't coming from a science background, so we had no idea what this data meant for the first couple of years. We had our first annual benefit last year at Jane's Carousel, which is one of the sites we were looking at as well. A special guest was Connor Dwyer, who's a gold medalist. A secret special guest was Kanye, who came and I think was actually more interested in the gold medal than in the project. But I think on a larger sense, what's really exciting is we started looking at this project as the first of potentially many pools. Obviously, they don't all have to be plus-shaped, but we spent the last couple of years actually going around to all these different cities, not only learning what cities are doing, but also realizing 90% of the largest cities have virtually the exact same problem that New York does. is there a kind of model not only for how to make this, but just simply a piece of infrastructure, a piece of public infrastructure that can bring people back in touch with their cities in a way? And so I think from a design perspective, what's exciting is if a typical architecture project is something like this, you start from policy and you have a client that approaches you, eventually you arrive at a design that gets built. We inadvertently sort of flipped it around, where we had a design, had no idea what to do with it, and slowly pushed it until we found the right team on it, the right site for it, the funding mechanism, and we are actually talking to the city about swimming codes and policy and actually how this could potentially affect laws in the city in a way. And I think for me, I think architecture as essentially a service industry, we've now been able to look at it almost like a product industry. We actually put something out there, and if there's an interest, it goes, and if there's not an interest, it doesn't. And it's actually an interesting model, I think, for public projects. That's basically it. Thanks for having me. You can find out more at pluspool.org. And I was asked to mention this. Please follow us at PluspoolNY for Twitter and Instagram. But thanks.